Hello everybody, this is Gamer for Life, back with a new tutorial of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and this is my very first tutorial on how to fly A310, the Beast, the first kind of close to real life airplane that Microsoft has provided by default inside the sim. So this is not a mod, this is what is available. So what we will do, we'll take a complete flight and we'll be doing an auto landing using A310 Airbus. So for that we'll be taking a short flight, and for that let's now click on world map and let's first select our aircraft. So you go to your airplane selection menu. You can click on this drop down and shortlist airliners by type, and then you can see you have Airbus A310-300 available. So click on that, and this is quite a plane in terms of liveries. I see there are a couple available. I'm not sure how they will impact the loading time because I haven't used them before. So for now I think I'll live with it. I'll maybe try it in the next tutorial. So we'll go with that livery. Alright, after that's selected, let's select our airport. So for that I have created a short flight plan using SimBrief. So if you want to see how to create a flight plan in SimBrief, you can check out my video which is on how to create a flight plan inside SimBrief and how to use it inside Microsoft Flight Simulator. So there's a whole series of 3-part tutorial. We're going to do the same in this as well, so you can live with this. Alright, so if you open this flight plan, so SimBrief allows you to export your flight plan as a PDF file. So we'll be doing everything else inside the sim, but if you go to the second page, this is where it says routing. So this is where you'll find the waypoints and airways for your flight. So you see our departure airport is Abu Dhabi, which is OMAA, and our departure runway will be 31 left, and this will be our SID, so standard instrument departure. Then it has given us only one waypoint, which is fine for our sake. We'll see how it turns out. The route, it seems pretty decent. It's a very short one, and which is our intention basically. And now this is start, the standard arrival, and our arrival airport is Dubai International. So OMDB is the code, and we'll be landing at 30 left, and we'll be doing an ILS auto landing. Alright, so with that, let me move this to my second monitor and let's choose our departure airport. Let's type in OMAA, so which is Abu Dhabi International Airport. Let's select it and let's input our arrival airport, which is OMDB. Alright, so with that selected, first thing we need to do is choose low altitude airways, so that it will then provide us options to choose our runways and choose an approach. Alright, so with that, it currently shows it's a 15 minutes flight. So let's see how it turns out once we enter our waypoints and SID and star. So let's first choose a gate, a ramp rather, from where we'll be departing. So I want to choose the closest one because it won't, this way we won't have to invest too much time in, taxiing from our parking gate to the takeoff runway. So I'm going to choose the second ramp, which is ramp 46. So click on it and set as departure. Alright, it always zooms back out. I don't understand why this hasn't been fixed. Or what's the point of just going back? Anyways, so with that selected, now the flight plan has provided us a SID of like Laureate 2K. So let's choose that. So let's go to departure. This is where you choose your standard instrument departure. So it's a set of coordinates which help plane navigate. So this is Laureate 2K. So for some reason there is one letter short. I don't know, I'm just a simmer, I'm not a pilot, so I'll just live with it. And 31 left is our departing runway. So let's choose that, and this now provides us some set of coordinates, where you have to fly straight up for a few moments and then make a right turn, rather than just flying off and then making an just acute angle towards right. All right, so with that chosen, let's now go to arrivals, and for arrival we have again Laureate 3C. So let's choose at our arrival airport. Let's find out L. So this is the one, because so I think we should choose this. There are two. One is for 30 right and one is for 30 left. So our runway is 30 left. So let's choose that, and with that, now our flight plan is in place. The only thing that is remaining is, so now it has become 43 minutes flight, which is about 160 nautical miles, and we just need to choose our approach, which is 30 left. So we need to choose ILS 30 left. That's what we want to do. We want to do an ILS landing and auto landing. That's it. So everything is in place. Now these coordinates, you will have to input these again in A310. So unlike A320, where if you choose your flight plan here, it will be automatically input. It will be there in the flight management computer inside the plane. But in this case, A310, we'll have to do it all over. So that's fine. This has given us a way to, kind of practice and remember where we're gonna do. Right. And because this is a relatively shorter flight, I want to keep the cruise altitude to a reasonable height from where it's possible for us to descend in time and be able to capture the glide slope and do an auto landing, ILS landing. So this is by default suggesting 14,500 feet, which I think sounds pretty good. So with all this, we'll click on fly and I'll meet you inside A310's cockpit. Alright, welcome back. So we are inside A310's cockpit, and let's go outside and see what's happening. So I think I had turned on the live traffic the last time I was inside Flight Sim, but never mind. Let's see how it goes. So yeah, so those signs indicate that this live traffic is on. Alright. So let's start our plane. Let's go inside the cockpit, and the angles, that are default angles which you change your view inside the cockpit are quite weird, and I haven't set those up. I didn't have enough time to pay attention to it, but anyways, I'll just use the pilot view. So what it is basically needed is we need to turn on the IRS switches. Otherwise everything accommodates well in your view if you press Control 8. So if you press Control 8, you can see these batteries, 3 batteries. So let's turn those on, and let's turn on the external power. So while these are being turned on, let us take clearance for our flight plan. So this is the plan that we filed inside while we were planning our flight in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but our flight management computer won't have this, so we'll have to set this up. For some reason, Squawk creates some problems, so it doesn't go automatically, so we'll have to set it up the first time we do it. So let me go back. So Squawk is 7542. Our initial climb altitude will be 8,000 feet. Our cruise will be around 14,500 or maybe 15,000. We'll see. All right. So let me go down and so let's first turn on those IRS switches, because that is the one that takes a bit of time. And for that, if you want to change those settings, you can go to your tab and go to settings, and here you can see IRS alignment. So should it be realistic or short or instant? So I've kept it on short. So realistic takes a bit longer, so I don't want to do that. So let's turn on those. So here is 1, here is 3. So 3 is in the middle. I don't know why. but then you have 3 IRS switches. So once you do these, plane starts aligning itself. Another thing you have to turn on is you have to turn on the yaw and dumpers. So these will be controlled by autopilot. Set the auto thrust, and this, the pitch trim doesn't work unless you are far into your flight planning. I just forgot the reason why I used to do that, but right now if you turn it on, it will go off. So we'll have to wait unless our plane turns on. I'll make sure I remember that and then tell you the next time. All right. Okay, so with that, I think we are good to go to our flight management computer FMC and start planning for our flight. So it says align IRS. So let's click on the init and let's enter our airports. So OMAA. So let's clear out this message first. OMAA /OMDB, and let's enter it. Let's return, and now with that we have entered our departure and arrival airports, and now we need to click on align IRS. Now with that, this will start showing you the message that IRS is in aligned. So it's aligned, the plane is aligning itself with the world coordinates to know where it's standing. All right, second thing, let's enter the cost index. Cost index is 40 is optimal. You don't need to think much about it. So if you keep the cost index low, the plane will fly slowly and try to be as fuel efficient as possible. And if you keep it high, like for example up to 100, it will fly as fast as it can, so it won't be fuel efficient. So that's the explanation that I know of, and I think it's good enough for us as flight simmers. Right, second is cruise altitude. So right now it's set up at 10,000, so we need to set it up at 15,000. So let's enter 150, 150 and click on cruise flight, and this is now set up. A flight ID, you can set it up anything. I'm just gonna do it arbitrarily, and let's enter it 88811. That's it. Okay, and for the next page we need to set up all these fuel information, but before that we need to go to flight plan and enter our coordinates that I showed you earlier, that I pulled off from the sim brief as well as from the flight planning inside MSFS while we were planning our flight. So let's click on our departure airport. Let's go to SID, and for that now we need to look at our flight plan. So we have 31 left as in our plan as a departure runway. So 31 left. Let's first choose the runway. So after you click on SID, you first need to choose the runway, departure runway. 31 left, and now we need to choose our SID. So this is lorry 2K, so it may appear as lorry 2K, no worries. So let's scroll down. So there it is, lorry 2K. Let's choose it, and now we must click on insert. So you see a set of waypoints has come up, and we need to scroll down and see, and there is a flight discontinuity, and we need to click on the arrival airport to set the star. So let's click on OMDB and then click on star, and now we need to choose our landing runway, which is 30 left. So it is ILS 30 left. We want to do an ILS auto landing. Click on that, and again let me show you, we have Laureate 3C as our star. So let's do that. So it is Laureate 3C. Alright, let's click on that and click insert, and now we have our SID and star entered. There's one flight discontinuity, and we have one waypoint to enter, which is Laureate, and which I think is present there. So there it is. So don't need to enter it anymore, only need to remove this flight discontinuity. Otherwise our plane, when it takes off, it follows all those waypoints. It does not know how to go from Laureate to Augur, this waypoint. So this creates problems. So for that we need to delete that, and for deleting we need to click on clear. So first let's clear out these messages. Click on clear, so there are no more messages. Now click on clear, and it's shows CLR. So with that there, click on flight discontinuity, and now it's gone. So our flight plan is now well set up. Okay, now let's go to our EFB. So this is called EFB, electronic flight bag. So initially, A310 was manufactured and first, used as a commercial plane in 1982. I think that's what they show when you're waiting for your flight to load. The MSFS inside this, it shows you. So at that time, there was no digital way to keep the flight record. So it used to be all the flight bag, where you were having all this information. Now it's electronic, so it's an electronic flight bag. All right, so now we need to load the plane with passenger information, and then calculate all the speeds and loads. So let's click on this this icon, and here we can set the number of passengers. So max is 230. Is it 2 or 8? It's 8. So I'll be loading it with full. And for cargo, we'll keep it at 3.5. And for the fuel, this is a 1 hour long flight, so 10 tons of fuel would be enough. We can take it for 2 hours. So 10 tons of fuel would be enough for 1 hour. For 2 hours, it will be 20. So I'm just taking extra. So with this setup, let's now click on apply. And now this gives you the gross weight of the plane, the fuel, zero fuel weight, the payload, and other things. So this is what we have planned. So we have applied it. Now we need to look at some things that relate to runway length. So if you click on, this is blank, right? So click on that, and it in the bottom left it shows you this is the runway length. So click on it, it will be automatically entered. Similarly for runway heading, click on it, it will give you this heading 308. It will be entered here, right? And now the weight. So for that we need to go back and see the gross weight of the plane is, this is in kilograms, so you can convert it and it will become 12.3, or it will no, so this is 123,206, so it will be 123.2. So let's do this, 123. All right, let me do it again. 123.2. That's it. Click enter, and now that is there. Now with all this information available, flaps are already set, so we'll be using flaps 15 for takeoff. So with that, it will provide us with V1, VR, and V2. Let's click on calculate. Now these speeds are calculated, so that is great. Now what we need to do first is we will be needing this information. So let's go back to our FMC, flight management computer. Click on init. So this is the information that we already entered. Now if you click on this next, this is where we need to enter the fuel related information. So our block fuel will be, which is 20.5. Okay, so with that there, now we need to enter the zero fuel weight, and I hope it will do the rest of the calculations for us. So this is zero fuel weight, so it's 102.7. Let's go back and let's enter 102.7, and now it's calculated takeoff gross weight and landing weight and zero fuel weight CG, which is available here. So this is 29.2. so CG is center of gravity, 29.2, and we are good to go. Now what we need to do, the only thing is we need to click on to and upper. So this is takeoff and approach. For that we need to enter these speeds. So we already got the speeds. If we go back to this, and we have 158, 162 and 165. So let's enter 158, 162 for rotate, and for this we need to manage this V2 162. We can't enter it from here, so it has to be set up in this. So for that we need to start the plane. So I think that is all about flight planning, except that we have to enter V2, which will be doing it from here. So let's now start the APU. So for that, just underneath we have this right there. So APU, let's turn it on. So APU is on, and now let's click on start. So now it will take a bit of time to start up, and what we can do is now let's take a look at our screens. And we'll be seeing some movement in those dials as soon as the APU starts. I hope so. I'm not missing out on anything. So let's go outside and see. So nothing has started yet. So let's go inside and see what are we missing out on. So APU start is on. So fuel tank pumps are off. So does APU need fuel pumps? Let's turn on all of those. And now it is showing some movement. So we needed to turn on the fuel pumps for APU to start. Let's now go outside. And the APU is starting now. So that's the way to go about it. Let's take a recap. So you need to turn on the APU. This is master switch, and then start the APU, which is APU starter button. And then, before that, better turn on the fuel pumps so that you don't get confused like I was. And now we'll have to wait and for APU to get started. So while APU is starting, let's work on our clearances. So we had our flight clearance. Now let's take the taxi clearance. So it was telling us that we need to set our squawk to 7542, and we need to contact departure on 124.85. Yes, so let's set the squawk first to 7542. So let's go down, and what I'll do now is, so this is where you can enter the squawk. So let's set this transponder mode to this. Let me show you. TARA, and let's set the squawk to 7542. So the bottom dial will give you bigger increments. So it's a 7542. Let's go to 7, 5 and 4, 2. That's it. So once you enter the correct squawk, it will now give you the frequency that we need to contact on 123.97 when ready to taxi. So let's go to 123.97 and request for taxi IFR. So we will be needing to contact on 119.2 when we are ready to take off. Okay, let's acknowledge it. So let's choose 119.2. Now what we need to do is just go to flight assistance and then turn the AI radio communication to AI. Turn it on. That's it. Now as soon as we hit that mark on the runway, the AI will handle our clearance for takeoff. So we don't need to press any buttons now. Okay, so With APU on, let's now turn on the ignition knob to starting for engine A. So let's start, or it's rather B, and we'll be turning on. It doesn't matter if you start engine 2 first or engine 1 first, doesn't matter. So we'll be turning on engine 2 first. So let's click on start. Our fuel pumps are on. We need to turn on the APU bleed, never forget that. And now we need to turn on ignition switch, or this is rather fuel pump, fuel switch, which starts injecting fuel into the engine and engine starts up. So you can hear the engine speeding up. So you see those dials going up. This is for engine 2 on the right side. This is for engine 1. Let me calibrate my throttle lever on my joystick. Alright, so engine 2 is stabilizing, almost stabilized. Okay, so now let's go again to engine 1. So set the ignition knob to A, click on engine 1 starter. So it says open, and now again let's turn on the fuel switch for this engine 1, and you will see those knobs changing the indicator's position as our engine 1 starts. So one thing I forgot is, because our APU is on, we do not need external power. So let's switch off the external power, because our aircraft is being currently powered by APU. So while we are at it, because we are turning on engine, I forgot that we need to turn on the beacon lights in advance. Let's turn on the runway lights on. Let's set, because we are about to start taxi, let's turn the nose light to taxi. Let's turn on our landing lights. I'm not sure about the wing lights. I'll just turn it on. I'll set the nav to 1. And for seat belts, these need to be turned on while we are taxiing and we are below 10,000 feet. And let's set this no smoking sign to auto, or rather turn it on. We don't want anyone to smoke on our flight. Alright, I think the engines are up and running. Yes, these are. So we can now safely turn off APU, because we do not need it. So turn off APU bleed, turn off APU starter, and we can set the ignition knob to continuous. Okay, so let's now with that set our pitch trim to auto. Alright, so this will enable our autopilot to control the yaw, pitch and the thrust of the plane. And the last thing that we promised was that we need to enter the V2, and for that we need to use this dial, and let's confirm the V2, which is 165. And we are 165. Okay, that is perfect. So we are up and running, and now let's push back. Let's go outside. Our taxi ribbon is on. It should be showing us the path, otherwise the runway is on this side, so we'll have to take off from this. So even if you turn on your VFR map, for some reason taxi ribbon isn't visible, but we are standing here and we need to taxi to this point and then take off. Because if you just zoom in, this will show you this is 31 left. Okay, so a little familiarity with the airport is also helpful in case taxi ribbon doesn't work for you, right? So now let's go to this plug like icon, and this will show you if you want to increase the brightness, you can hold left mouse button and drag towards right. It will increase the brightness, so it will make it easy for you to just read the EFB screen. So let's click on prepare for pushback and departure. Okay, and let's click on back. This will move the pushback tug into position. Right, it's moving back into position. So while our pushback tug is going into position, let me set up our altitude. So initial climb was expected to be 8,000 feet, but what I'll do, I'll just enter it as 15,000, which is our cruise altitude. So let's set it up all the way in the beginning, because ATC at times, it still is problematic. It keeps giving you incorrect instructions. For example, when you need to start your descent, you are approximately 10 miles from your runway, 10 nautical miles from your runway, and it will keep telling you, why have you descended down? You should go up to your assigned altitude. So for that reason, we'll be managing the altitude on our own. Alright, I hope pushback tug in position and we are being pushed back. So let's release the parking brake, and we are now going back, and we need to make a right turn. Let's click on right. Let's try and follow that yellow line. Alright, so let's go straight and stop the pushback, and my thrust levers are set to idle and plane is starting to taxi, which is the real world plane mechanics rather, how it works. So I'll just add a little bit of thrust just to add up to the speed while we are taxiing, because I find it very slow. It's a huge plane, slow in terms of taxiing if you leave the thrust levers to idle, not otherwise. So if you find it speeding up, you can set the thrust levers back to zero, back to idle, or you can press brakes to slow down. Alright, it's time to slow down, and our ATC is set to AI. I'm gonna see, because the live traffic is turned on, I'm seeing quite a bit of traffic on the runway. I'm glad that these are moving. I'll just move in line while my ATC communication panel is open and I'm looking at any instructions for slowing down or stopping, or since we are following live traffic, I believe we need to respect that. I'll just engage the parking brakes. Set my thrust to idle and wait for the space to clear up. Okay, so the first one has taken off, is taking off, and the plane next, yeah, so the first one is up in the air and next one is getting in line, and now let's move on and get closer. So I've released the parking brake and we are getting into position. So ATC isn't giving any instructions, and frankly I'm not relying on those. So just speed up a bit so as to move faster. Alright, time to get clearance while that plane is taking off. So I don't see ATC doing anything. So we are still farther from the gate. Let's move into position, and my attention is completely on the ATC panel and relying on AI to give us the clearance. I don't have to do it manually. How to get past this? It happens at times. Or ATC should provide us for taking the clearance manually. So let's get lined up with the runway and make some final pre-flight preparations. So while we are lining up, I'm gonna lower the flaps to 15. And stop. Engage parking brakes. Our initial climb, or rather cruise altitude, is set. Let's set auto brakes to low. Let's engage, let's arm the speed brakes. Our flaps haven't moved, so let's set those to 15. Let's make sure these are 15. Alright, that's good. Let's now release parking brake and click on toga. So the plane will control the speed of the aircraft. We just have to stay lined up with the runway. And let me turn on the brake fan. I forgot it because it gives error during the takeoff because brakes get heat up. So you see the alarm is trying to come up, but I have turned on the brake fans and I hope it won't cause any trouble. So we have to stay lined up with the runway. This is the indicator for our V1 and rotate, so two small dials. So I'm doing pretty badly in terms of staying lined up with the runway. And V1 and rotate. Positive rate, gear up. Alright, let's engage autopilot. Let's click on profile, so it will follow the altitude, and let's click on nav, so it will follow the flight plan. Let's take the flaps up one notch. You see the S sign, this is where we need to take another notch of flaps up so as to set the flaps to 0. As the speed increases, we'll be setting those up, and we are nicely following up our flight plan. So let's set up the flaps to 0. That will help speed up the aircraft. The auto throttle is engaged. Profile is set. So this controls the altitude of the aircraft. Nav is set. Our plane for some reason is slowing down. Let's disarm the speed brakes. I think this is some flickering happens, for not sure why it happens. Is it a glitch or what? But auto throttle is engaged and our plane isn't speeding up. It is speeding up gradually. Now it is. Yes. I think this has to do with the waypoints, the speed limits set for each of the waypoints. If you go to your flight plan, currently we are getting closer to AA820. So this is AA820. So this is where the speed is expected to be 230 and the flight level is expected to be 7,200 feet. So we are still lower, we are still going up. So I think things are well in control. Let's go outside and see Abu Dhabi. It's a huge plane, A310. So this is a shorter flight. So we are about to make our first right turn and we are well on our way to reach the climb altitude. And it will give us an indication as to where we need to start our descent. So right now, we just need to follow the flight plan. So making our first right turn. So zooming out in terms of range helps us visualize our flight path. So about 10,000 feet we need to turn off our landing light, and I forgot to set our nose light to takeoff and taking off. And let's just ignore it for the moment. And we can turn off our seatbelt signs while we are above 10,000 feet. So we have reached our cruise altitude of 15,000. And we'll keep flying for a while, and I think you can see this notch pointing us out, and this probably is the point where we have to start our descent. Let me see if I can zoom on it. So yes, so let me compare it on the map. So this is Auger, and next one is Pebbles, and the next one is Emopo. So EMOPO. So this is where we need to start our descent, so that we are in time to be at 3,000 feet altitude, where we'll be able to capture the glide slope. We could have gone higher, and then as a result we would have to start our descent earlier, but it's better to keep it at a manageable, the cruise altitude has to be at a manageable level, so that it doesn't turn into an emergency of getting down quickly, or it's just like as soon as you reach your cruise altitude and you are indicated that you have to start your descent. So we should have some privilege, to remain at our cruise altitude for a while. So ATC, although it didn't give me any instructions, but it's now telling me to set the squawk to 7746. So I just set it up. So this is a thing that you have to manage your squawk manually if you want to stay in contact with ATC. Otherwise you are good to go on your own, because ATC isn't that helpful. You have all the information on waypoints and the altitude that you have to be on any waypoint, the speed that the aircraft has to follow. So it's all managed by A310. So ATC isn't that helpful in this case. So interestingly, ATC is telling me to descend to 11,000 feet, which in this case I find quite reasonable, although it hasn't been that helpful. So if we start descending from Imopo, it will be quite closer, and I haven't done any calculation on when to start descending, but I think I'll just follow that instruction, considering the fact that this is a relatively shorter flight. So let's set it up to 11,000. It's best to keep it in manageable chunks, the descent, your altitude. So we need to click on off and then on, so that ATC recognizes that it has to start following the new altitude. So now the plane has started descending. So this probably was the point. Yes, it definitely was the point where we had to start our descent. So we have started a little earlier, which I think is quite reasonable. I think I'll set the altitude all the way down to 3,000 and let not the plane stop at 11,000, because it has to continue to descend. So let's click on profile off and on, and it has set to 3,000. Yes, it will continue to descend. So as we get closer to the runway, I'm anticipating Old Dot is the waypoint where we will be able to capture the glide slope for us to be able to do an auto landing or ILS landing. And while we are descending, let's find out the runway frequency that we have to enter. So let's click on the airport name, and our runway is 30 left. So this is the runway frequency, 111.3. So let's enter it, and this is our ILS runway frequency. So it's 111.8. See, 3. 30 left, 111.3. Alright, so this is set, and the CRS is 299. So there we go. So our runway frequency is set, and we are continuing to descend. And we are about to be below 10,000 feet. So let's not forget turning on the seatbelt signs, and let's turn on the landing lights. So the landing lights have to stay on below the altitude of 10,000 feet. So we are slowing down. And another important thing is let me show you. I just forgot where I saw the landing speed. So this is the speed. If you click on takeoff approach, you have to be at 142 when we are landing. The speed of the aircraft is being managed on its own pretty well, and we are continuing to descend. Probably airport is, we will be flying close by to the airport, so I think airport is just in front of us. It's just the waypoints that are given to us is because there are some high buildings in this area, high-rise buildings. So for that we have to come, we have to take the left side and make a right turn and then align ourselves with the airport. So this is Burj Al Khalifa, and this is the airport. So if we go descend down, there are several high-rise buildings. I have attempted the landing before in this direction and it was painful, to be honest. So we'll have to make our right turn once again to line up with the airport. Sort of, we'll be flying parallel to the airport and then go forward and then come back and land. So these are the live traffic markers. These are the planes that are waiting at the airport. Looks like they are suspended in the air. But because we are at a distance, so these are just grouped together. So let's get lined up with the airport in parallel to the airport. So that's the airport. So there we go. We'll be flying this parallel to the airport and then coming back for landing. So this is the marker where we need to start slowing down. So we'll start adding flaps there. Currently we are at 220 knots and we are managing our altitude as per expectations. So let's turn on the ILS, navigation mode to ILS, and this will help us see the position of and the localizer and the glide slope, and this is the runway distance from the runway, DME distance from the runway where we'll be landing. So we are about 5.5 nautical miles. It will first increase and decrease. I don't know if it's calculating in terms of the flight plan or just doing some calculations, but anyways, we are well on our way to land. So aircraft speed is being managed pretty well, so I'm not going to lower the flaps as yet unless we make our turn. So as we fly closer to this waypoint of which is just parallel to this, so old dot is, let me just zoom in. So you see when we reach this point, the set point, so just after old dot we'll be able to capture the glide slope. So right now it's showing so that we are at the right altitude and we'll be good to capture the glide slope as we are lined up with the runway. So currently my localizer mode is turned off, land mode is also turned off, which basically follows the glide slope for landing. So that's why we did not, our plane kept following the flight plan, which is actually we want. So we are close to making our second last right turn before making the final turn to line up with the runway. So there we go. I'm gonna start slowing down by adding flaps. First notch. Let me make sure my joystick button worked. It didn't for some reason. Let me try it again. Yeah, it did now. I have to press harder. Not sure if it's the configuration that I need to take care of or it's just my joystick that is kind of giving up. This is our final turn before we line up with the runway, and this is the time where I'll just wait a little and then I'll turn on the localizer mode. I'll just turn it on straight away and our plane should start lining up with the runway. So we are in the localizer mode. You can see we haven't yet captured it. We have to get closer to that old dot waypoint where localizer and Glideslope will be available to be captured. So there we go, localizer has appeared and now we have captured the localizer. So plane will now be lining up itself with the runway on its own. And also let me switch to land mode. So this what this will do, this will, as soon as the glide slope appears, it will start capturing the glide slope. And so you see glide slope is yet to be captured. So once we capture the glide slope, plane will start descending towards the runway for landing. Things are looking pretty good. So we'll wait a little longer before we start making preparations for landing. So glide slope is yet to be captured, yeah. In preparation for landing, I'll start slowing down by adding another notch of flaps. So there we go, speed has appeared. So our final landing speed is 142. I'll just slow down to 160 for now. Also, you see the diamond for the Glideslope is starting to come into range, and as we get closer to this old dot, it will start moving down. So our land mode is already selected, which will help us capture the Glideslope. And once we start descending, I will engage autopilot 2 because we want to do an auto landing today. So I'm gonna add flaps. Let us slow down to 150. The runway is in sight. We are closer to the runway. Let's lower the landing gear. All 3 green lights. So you see Glideslope has started moving towards the center line. Our land is engaged. Land mode is engaged. So anytime as we capture the Glideslope, we'll start descending towards the runway. So I will add the final notch of flaps. And I'll set the landing speed to 142. So a display will show that Glideslope has been captured and we have started descending towards the runway. So our flaps are down, landing gear is down, and speed brakes are armed, and we are ready to rock and roll. That means to land. So right now it's saying Cat 2 and Flight Director 1. Let's engage autopilot 2 as well, so it's now dual, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do an auto landing. And as we start, as we are down to, as we are closer to our runway, this message should change to land. So in order to just clear out the view, I turned off the live traffic because it was just obstructing our view of the airport. About 500 feet above the runway. So you see it's saying land now, so we will be doing an auto landing for sure. Should say flare anytime. Yes, it's saying flare. It's starting to flare up now and slowing down. So we have successfully landed. Frame rate is suffering a little bit. I'll just engage reverse thrust, slow down the aircraft. And that's about it. So guys, I hope you like this tutorial. In this tutorial we flew in A310 Airbus, and let's make a turn while we are talking. Let's disengage the autopilot. We flew in the, so in this tutorial we flew in A310 Airbus, and we did a complete flight from flight planning, inputting data into FMC, and then taking off, and then managing the descent of the aircraft, and doing and preparing it for an auto landing, and successfully performing an auto landing. So let me know if you have any suggestions, if you want any specific tutorials for A310, and meanwhile do give like to this video and subscribe to my channel. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.